So glad this guy covers the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for Pewter Report and joins us on the program today, the one and only Matt Matera, Matty4_Matera. He's there in his car at the Advent Health Training Center at One Buccaneer Place. His license plate number is Matt, New York Mats for life. I love Juan Soto. What's going on, brother?
Oh, not much, Jay. Thank you so much for having me on. It's always great talking to you. So excited to chat about this playoff run, hopeful playoff run for the Bucs.
It's so crazy that they win 6 of 7. They end up winning that final game. It was just so cool to be there in attendance, to be able to watch that game and to see Mike Evans get the record. And I love one of the few people that were almost looking at it like, all right, now we got to move on. Now we got to move forward is Graham Barton. I was talking to him in the locker room. He's like, now we got to focus on the playoffs. You were there. What's the mindset for this team as they turn the page from the dramatic win there in week 18 to now the playoff matchup against the Washington Commanders?
I literally just got outside after speaking to Graham Barton. He was in the locker room today. And it's funny, you mentioned like everyone getting excited about all these records and what Mike did. Apparently, Bucky Irving got everybody these T-shirts. It's with Bucky's face on it and it says 1K, and there's a tiny little duck in the bottom right corner as well. And Bucky got it for everybody, which Graham was wearing today when he spoke to all of us. So I think that was the cherry on top, the last tip of the cap. But everybody now, whether it was Baker who we spoke to, Todd Bowles, everybody knows the mindset now. It's win or go home. There's no tomorrow after Sunday's game if they don't win. So there's no room for error. Obviously, the Commanders are a good team that is way different than who the Bucs saw in week 1 to begin the season. So I think all of that's in the past now. Everybody can commemorate what went on with Mike and Bucky and clinching the division, but it's all business now. We saw what they did last year, going on a little bit of a run, and they want to go even further this year.
Yeah, you got that right, man. I mean, to win a game last year against the Philadelphia Eagles, you're like, all right, hey, you're in a good spot, played some good football. We know Philadelphia was on kind of the downturn of their season. They started out hot, and then it just all came crumbling down. What is your biggest concern when it comes to Jayden Daniels? And I'm talking a little bit more in depth than just like his legs. We know, he is a guy that can really hurt you in the running game, and we'll acknowledge your tribal chief, Ed Encina, chiming in. Acknowledge your tribal chief, Braden Point, wrestling fan. Hell, the last time I talked to you, Ed Encina.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
It's so funny. We love you, Ed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Jayden Daniels, what worries you about him other than just the obvious, like he's an athletic freak and, he can run the ball, 15 times if they allow him to?
Yeah, it's not even the scrambling, and that's certainly a big part of it, but it's just his ability to extend a play and provide a little more time for guys to get open. Because as electric as Jayden Daniels is, and he knows, even in that first game, he knew where to go with the football. It's just whether or not he had time. If Jayden Daniels can extend the play by 1 or 2 more seconds, I mean, hell, we've seen Cooper Rush, even Spencer Rattler last game with some dink and dunks. Like, tight ends have killed the Bucs this year, so just giving their tight end another second to get open. Terry McLaurin, who was very pedestrian in the first game against the Bucs but had a great season, just giving those skill position players one more moment to get open with the secondary and a linebacker group that's really struggled in pass coverage this year. To me, that's the biggest concern with Jayden Daniels is how many times have we seen, and Yaya Diaby had a great week. He was NFC Defensive Player of the Week. Hopefully that can carry into the postseason as well. But how many times have we seen the edge rushers be close but no cigar, or they have the quarterback ready and then somehow gets out of it? It's been a lot of Vita Vea and Kalijah Cansey, but if they're not getting it done, I'm worried that Jayden Daniels is going to have a lot of time to throw. And then today's NFL and with the Bucs secondary, guys are going to be open. And can the Bucs win in a shootout? Yes, I do, but you don't want to get to that part.
Exactly. What do we know as far as an update from Todd Bowles on a guy like Antoine Winfield Jr.? Because it'll be a lot, I don't want to say easy, but easier to try to contain Jayden Daniels if you have number 31 out there.
Yeah, actually some really good news with Antoine Winfield Jr. And the Bucs had a walkthrough today. They've been doing that for Wednesdays, really the last month and a half, just later in the season. But if they were to actually practice today, Antoine Winfield Jr. would have been a full participant. So that is great news. He started practicing last week a little bit in a limited capacity. So it looks like he'll be a full participant tomorrow, or at least getting out there with the helmet and the shoulder pads when they're actually getting going. And I mean, there's been injuries all year long for the Bucs, but specifically at safety. At the point now, Christian Isian's on IR. Jordan Whitehead finally gets back and then gets into that unfortunate car accident, and now he's out for the year. They desperately need Antoine Winfield Jr. back, because even though Kayvon Merriweather I thought was solid last game, this is a completely different animal with the with the playoffs and playing against a lot better offenses. So great to see Antoine Winfield Jr. looking like he's scratching and clawing, trying to get back into the lineup, the roster, and to play in this playoff game. So we'll see.
Yeah, excited about that. They're going to definitely need him, if not only in this game, but if they are able to advance on farther, because it's only going to get more difficult when you're playing some of these other elite teams in the NFC. I want to ask you about Rachaad White. Didn't get any touches in that game. What do you make of him not being a factor in Week 18 against the Saints, and do you think he'll get some more touches this Sunday night against Washington?
Yeah, I was curious about that. Didn't even have a target either, and I think he's done more of his damage as a receiving running back. And Todd Bowles said earlier this week, we got to get him touches, we got to get him the ball. I honestly think it was just how the game was going. The Bucs decided we're going to ride with Bucky Irving, and they used Bucky in a lot more passing plays as well, which came as a little bit of a surprise because Rachaad White is their best pass blocking running back. And you would think, well, the way that the game went early on, it seemed like the Bucs were a little bit too hyper focused on getting Mike Evans the football. And I get it. Like I want to get Mike the football as well. But I think they tried to take the Saints off guard a little bit and surprise them by being like, okay, we're going to have Bucky in the game, but we're also going to throw it. Because when you think, oh, they're going to throw it, Rachaad White will be in the game. But that wasn't the case. His one rushing attempt got negated by a penalty, so it didn't even count. It was a little odd, but I'm going to chalk it up to just the way that the game went, the way that it played out, just didn't get Rachaad involved. I don't think that's going to be who knows how many more games they have left, but I don't think it's going to be a weekly occurrence or something that you have to worry about for next season as well. I just think it was one of those anomalies that occasionally happens from time to time.
Saw some interesting whether Cade Otton could come back as well. And we've seen the tight end step up. You're not these guys with Mike being back now and some of these other guys emerging. They're not going to get 10 targets, but you see the last couple of weeks, Devin Culp with a couple of grabs. You see Payne Durham with the touchdown grab last week. Like, it's really cool to see that tight end room kind of step up and when their number's called, make some plays. And we've kind of seen that. That's kind of been their mode of operation the last couple of years. I remember the game against Houston last year where the Buccaneers lost, but Cade Otton had an incredible grab at the end. Payne Durham had a really nice catch last year. That's a room that I think they deserve a little bit more credit on answering the bell when their number's called, and also blocking. We talk about the running game, finished 4th in the regular season. As much as we want to talk about the offensive line and we want to talk about Liam Coen and Bucky Irving, like the tight ends are in there a lot as well, throwing O'Keefe in there. Those guys have really made a nice jump from one season to the next, kind of just contributing in every facet.
No doubt about it, Jay. And I think a great example is actually if you go back 2 weeks ago when the Bucs absolutely throttled the Panthers. And on that first drive of the game, yes, it was a Mike Evans touchdown from the 1 yard line. But the play right before that was a huge catch and run by Payne Durham, who got tackled at the 1. The cool thing is on that play, you had all 3 tight ends in the game, Payne Durham, O'Keefe, and Devin Culp, and they just ran go routes, and Payne Durham was open and made the play. I think it speaks to Liam Coen and his ability to get the best out of anyone, let alone the tight ends. But even looked like when Mike and Chris went down, you had Ryan Miller scoring game-time touchdowns in Kansas City, and Cade Otton became a huge threat in the passing game. But then to bring it back to the tight ends, they're obviously better if Cade Otton's in there. But the contributions they're getting, Payne Durham, cracking skulls blocking, I think he is kind of the new iteration of Cam Brate. Like, he's not going to have all these crazy stats, maybe not a high volume of targets the way Cade Otton did when Mike and Chris were out. But Payne Durham scored a touchdown the last 2 games. He's been that red zone target. Right. Devin Culp has good speed. Like, that Panthers game 2 weeks ago was the most he ever played. Had 52 receiving yards. That was 3rd highest on the Bucs in that game. So immediately making an impact. He had some clutch 3rd down catches last game. they know that they don't have to be Travis Kelce or Gronk
Right.
or one of the top tight ends. They just have to do their part, and they really are. And it's great to see because they can. This Bucs offense can just beat you in so many different ways. They can run it all day with Bucky Irving. They can obviously feed Mike Evans, or they can go to their third, fourth, and fifth options and still find a way to beat you. And it's a great thing to see, and you certainly need it for the postseason. So definitely huge credit should go to those tight ends.
Yeah, Jalen McMillan too is another guy that's really done such a
Exactly.
great job. He's just another option there in the on the offense. And I don't know how many offensive players of the week. We also have Sean Tucker. It's just
Right.
don't forget about the one game that he had. But I want to ask you, we're talking about this team and talking about the contributions and the changes from one year to the next. One of the most popular names that we've heard over the last 7 days is Liam Coen and his future. Where is your concern level when it comes to Liam Coen and him not being a part of this team next season?
Oh, it's definitely a concern. I just don't think it's as much of like, oh my God, he's going to take a head coaching job no matter what. To me, for Liam Coen, and I think Bucs fans should feel a little bit better when he spoke about it last week, and he's essentially like, yes, I want to be a head coach. That's a goal, but it can wait. It doesn't have to happen right now with him saying like, I'm having so much fun right now. And I think if you look at the head coaching jobs that are available at the moment, like, do you want to go to an absolute mess that is the New York Jets? No. Do you want to go to the Saints that are in cap hell and have an aging team? No. I understand the ties to New England because he's from there. He grew up a Patriots fan. He loves Tom Brady. But it seems like the Patriots are all in on Mike Vrabel.
Yeah.
So if that is the case, what are your options really? The Jaguars, which they've requested to interview with him. The Raiders just became available. I don't know. And obviously, there's a reason why these teams want a new head coach. They are bad football teams that are underperforming. Yes, you can go and try to like be the savior of that. But if that's not the exact situation you want to get yourself into,
Right.
why not? Like, why put yourself in it if you don't necessarily have to? I think it's very different what Dave Canales was going into last year with the Panthers and what Liam Coen is now. Last year, there was not a lot of conversation about, oh my God, the Bucs are going to lose Dave Canales. They're going to have to find a new offense coordinator. He wasn't a hot button topic. He wasn't the next big name that people need to find. I think it was more of nobody wanted to coach at Carolina because of their owner, David Tepper. And they said, all right, we like Dave Canales. And Canales is going, well, I may never get a shot to be a head coach. I'm going to take it now. Liam Coen, and sorry for my voice cracking. I'm just, this is a very important topic. Liam Coen, everybody's been talking about him for weeks now. The Bucs are a high-flying offense. They're better than they really have been in, 3 or 4 seasons? Really, since that 2021 season, we haven't seen an offense this efficient in Tampa Bay. I think the biggest thing for keeping Liam Coen, if he wants to stay and be an offensive coordinator, if they stick with Todd Bowles, is everybody's coming back next year except for maybe Chris Godwin. Baker's under contract. Mike is. The whole offensive line with the exception of Ben Bredesen. Jalen McMillan, obviously, on a rookie contract. The running back room with Bucky and Rachaad White. They could just do this all over again, and then you don't know who's going to be available next season for a head coaching position. Maybe you find one that's better. Maybe Todd Bowles says, you know what? Next year, I'm done coaching. I'm over it. And then he can become the head coach of the Bucs. I get it. Like, you gotta ride the momentum a little bit, but I don't see this Bucs offense slowing down next season if Liam Cohen's there because you have all the pieces in place.
I'm with you, man. Speaking of Todd Bowles, where do you think his job security is right now? I've been saying for the last couple of days and even last week of like, you're talking about a guy, and I know a lot of people may not like his game management when it comes to timeouts. Newsflash, there's not many good coaches out there when it comes to timeouts. It doesn't matter if your name is Bowles, Tomlin, Campbell, Raheem Morris. Like, nobody seems, even they could have teams.
Andy Reid was criticized for years and years and years before he won Super Bowls about his timeout issues.
Tom Coughlin was another guy that didn't really do a great job when it came to timeout. So it's easier said than done. I think he catches way too much heat. You're talking about a guy that in the last 5 games of the season gave up 9 points in the second half. 3 field goals in the last 5 games. His halftime adjustments has been incredible. Now, am I saying that he's of the level of a top 5 coach in the league? No, but the fact that people are so quick to blame everything on Bowles, I just think it's kind of a quick, it's a quick hitter. It's a quick knee-jerk reaction. Partially, I'm sure it's because like, all right, get rid of him, and because we want to keep Liam Coen. But listen, Liam Coen's an offensive coordinator, right? He's not a head coach. It's different. There's more
Yeah.
decisions that need to be made. Where do you see Todd Bowles when it comes to his job security? Does he need to win this game on Sunday to keep his job? I don't necessarily think so. But how would you assess where Todd Bowles is right now?
It's a good question, and it's really like it's a lot of moving parts, right? In my opinion, if the Bucs were to lose against the Commanders on Sunday night, I think it's a coin flip. I think it's a 50-50 shot Todd Bowles is back, or that they decide to move on and probably go with Liam Coen, but you can't 100% guarantee that. I think part of the problem is a lot of the issues have been on the Bucs defense. And you make a great point, and I wrote about it this week about how great the Bucs have been in the second half of games defensively over the past couple of contests. The shutout against the Chargers is a really good feather in the cap. But you also look at the quality opponents, and yes, they don't make the schedule. But what changes are going to be made on the defensive side? Because I don't think you can go into next season and be like, we need all the same coaches back, and we need that same production that we got. Because they're not intercepting the football. They're not really taking the ball away at all, and they're one of the worst teams in pass coverage. What changes and adjustments can Todd Bowles make? And let's remember, they've improved every year, but they won the division 8-9 and then 9-8. 10 wins, double-digit wins. I think that's great for Todd Bowles. Are they really getting the best out of their team, though, with Bowles as the head coach? And remember, he's 61, 62 years old. Liam Cohen's 39. If you think Liam Coen is the next Sean McVay or whatever it may be, it's tough to pass up that opportunity when you could have your coach for the next decade or two, when Bowles is maybe coaching for 2 or 3 more years at most. It's a tough thing to battle, because also Bowles does deserve credit for the halftime adjustments. He does deserve credit for keeping this team together during a losing streak. Now, at the same time, we've seen the same thing 2 years in a row. Do you want to do this every single year, where you start out great, then you lose a bunch of games in a row, and then you kind of save your ass at the second half of the season, winning a bunch and getting into the postseason? I don't know. So if they were to win and they get to the second round, I think Bowles is safe. If they certainly get to the NFC Championship game, it'd be a really bad look to let go of Todd Bowles. So there's a lot of moving parts depending on how far the Bucs go over this next month.
I think I can't believe I'm saying this, because you and I both saw him with the Jets. It's not the same. It's not the same now than it was at the end of the Jets tenure, when things were falling apart. The foundation was cracking. Like,
Yeah.
not even close. Like, even this team 2 years in a row with their struggles in the middle of the season, you don't hear players, you don't hear murmurs coming out of people not liking Todd Bowles, or like, you hear that everywhere in the National Football League. You
That's
don't
true.
hear that when it comes to Todd Bowles and the Buccaneers. I worry about, everybody thinks like change is always good. Sometimes it's not. Now you go Liam Coen. Okay, you elevate him as the head coach because you don't want to lose him as your play caller. Well, what if when the team goes through a struggle in the middle of the season, he panics and he doesn't show faith in his guys, and then people start alienating him, and then he loses the respect of the room? Because once you lose respect of the room, it is awfully hard to get it back. And Bowles never has lost the respect of the room. He's loyal to a fault, holding on to Ryan Neals and Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. But listen, at the end of the day, Todd Bowles made the idea. 4th and 8, we're going for it. Todd Bowles' decision ultimately whether Mike Evans was going to go get that record or not, right? Todd Bowles, an old guy, defensive guy, let's try to win. He was on the forefront of, no, we're getting Mike that record, right? So, I mean, I think we have to be very, very careful when it comes to like, all right, is Todd really getting the most out of this defense? Look at his linebacking core. I mean, you could argue it's one of the worst linebacking cores in all of football. I mean, Levante David, and I know Scott was talking about it, like, his playing coverage, his tackling in space. Like, at times this year, it hasn't been great. You and I both know KJ Britt's not the answer. You and I both know that JJ Russell is a good special teamer, but not a good linebacker. You're shooting up guys like Ryan Neal. Your outside pass rush, the drafting of a guy like Chris Braswell, that hasn't paid dividends this year. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, like, is that, people could say like, all right, it's Todd Bowles' fault for not putting those guys in a position to be able to rush the passer. Well, all right, well, you're also getting guys like Vita Vea and Kalijah Kancey performing to their level, if not exceeding their level of their elite draft status, where they're Pro Bowlers or fringe Pro Bowlers. So Todd doesn't get any credit for that. I can't believe I'm defending the guy, because one of the only people when they gave him the job. Like, bro, I saw this story with the Jets. Half my family are Jets fans. You know this. But I got to be honest, Matt. Like, I don't see the same Todd Bowles that I saw with the Jets when there was good players on that defense and it was crumbling even when they were relatively healthy. And I see this team where Antoine Winfield Jr. is banged up. You got other guys dealing with injuries. Kalijah was injured earlier on this year, and they somehow find a way to keep it all together. If they put some of those resources into the linebacker position, maybe get an outside pass rusher to go along with some of the guys they already have. Like, I think this defense can get back to being one of the better ones, because nobody was saying his defense sucked a couple of years ago when they had Shaq Barrett in his full complement and Dominican Sue and Jason Pierre-Paul and a rookie Devin White. Nobody at that time was saying that Todd Bowles and his defense was antiquated.
I actually brought that up the other day on our podcast. I was saying, like, there's no doubt, like, this year the offense has been the one to kind of carry the team more than the defense. But I was like, we're quick to forget that, like Tom Brady's last season, the last time the Bucs had beaten the Saints at Raymond James Stadium up until Sunday was that Monday night game where everyone remembers it as Tom Brady had this great drive at the end of the game, and Cade Otton, I believe, scored the game-winning touchdown. It might have been Keyshawn Vaughn. People forget that game was 17-16, and the Bucs offense is doing nothing the entire game, and the Bucs defense saved the day. There were many times in 2022, and even last year, at least at the beginning of the season, once the offense was still trying to, figure out the system and everything like that, the defense was the one winning the games for the Bucs. It wasn't the offense, and people are quick to kind of forget that when you look at, he's a defensive coach and things, things aren't working out, so we got to get rid of him. I think, comparing the Jets and the Bucs team, I still think by far the Bucs have had much more talent that Bowles can work with than what he had with the Jets. Now, injuries obviously and stuff obviously play a big factor. So there's a lot to collect when it comes into this. Like, you watch the Saints game and you're like, how on earth did the defense allow the Saints to get that field goal right before the second quarter ended? Like, it was dink and dunk out of bounds. It's the same play 10 times in a row, and that frustrates you and it annoys you, and you're like, what are you doing, Todd Bowles? But at the same time, I think you're right. Todd Bowles doesn't get enough credit for the behind-the-scenes things, the intangibles, getting the best out of his players, defending his players. And, everyone likes when Bruce Arians calls out every single guy, and that's just not Todd's style. And for whatever reason, it's kind of been a detriment to him a little bit. He likes to be calm on the sideline so no one else panics. And, we don't know what it would look like with Liam Coen in that situation. We have seen it with Todd Bowles, and guys have stuck together. Now, is that Bowles specifically? Is that just the caliber of players that they have in this locker room? They're all ready to band together when the going gets tough. It's one of those things you don't really know until you're actually in it. So I like Todd Bowles a lot. I respect him. He's a good man. Sometimes he gets kind of a raw deal, just a little bit, and all he could do is just keep winning, and that's the best way to keep his job.
Yeah, you got that right, man. I think it's everybody. When you talk about the character, and this, like, this is part of the reason why a team like the Lightning has been so revered over the last decade, is because it's one voice. It's Vinnick and Yzerman, Brisebois, Cooper, Stamkos, Hedman. Like, it's one voice down the line. There's no dissension. There's no bitching and moaning when things go wrong. There's a head coach and a general manager and an owner that doesn't freak out, and they're calm, cool, and collected. I mean, we're very lucky in the Tampa Bay area to have three.
Yeah.
When you look at Kevin Cash, you look at John Cooper, and you look at Todd Bowles, where they could go on some losing streaks, and they just don't panic. And I think there's a lot to be said with that when you look across the National Football League, and guys are getting fired after 1 year because they don't make adjustments. They don't make halftime adjustments like we see from Todd, and they freak out when things don't go well. They panic and they lose their identity. So the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and I can't believe I'm defending him as vociferously as I have been, but I think it's one of those, you look at what happened with Mike Evans, and you look at how everybody was on board, and you look at how happy everybody was. I mean, that's leadership, and Todd Bowles is part of that leadership group. And I'm worried that if he's not brought back because people are making rash decisions, that it could hurt them in the long run. All right, before I let you go, what's your prediction? Where do you see, how do you see this game turning out on Sunday night?
I love the over in this game. I think both offenses are going to absolutely thrive. Remember, the Bucs scored over. What did they score? 37 points in that season opener against Washington, and yes, they have improved since then. But even in that first game, the running game wasn't what it is now. So I think the Bucs can really lean on that running game, keep Jayden Daniels off the field. Their passing game is going to be pretty stellar. I love Jayden Daniels. He's so much fun to watch. They don't turn the ball over a ton, but he does make a couple of mistaken throws in each game. Sometimes he'll turn the ball over in the red zone. Neither of these defenses get turnovers. They both only have 7 interceptions on the season, but I don't know. Crazy enough, I just think like one big play by Todd Bowles and the Bucs defense may be the difference. So I think it's going to be high scoring. I'm going to take the Bucs to win, though I don't feel majorly confident about it. But let's remember, Todd Bowles had a trick up his sleeve last year in that game against the Eagles. He moved Zion McCollum to safety. They did a much different look than that first matchup against the Eagles. I think that's going to be the case for this game against the Commanders. It's going to be mostly the offense, but the defense has one moment that you could point to and say that helped the Bucs win the game. I don't think it's going to. Bucs fans are going to be holding their breath the whole time, but they're going to win and they're going to have another playoff game.
Matt, I am with you because I really truly believe that for you to be as successful as Jayden Daniels has been in his rookie season, you have to be resilient. You have to be able to kind of snap and release, and just if you make a mistake, you got to move on, and you can't let it snowball. But in the postseason, it comes down to moments and it comes down to the fine margins. And I truly believe that there's going to be one play where he tries to do just a little bit too much, whether it's trying to force a close throw, whether it's trying to extend a play that he should have either thrown the ball away or got down and he fumbles. I think that is going to be the difference in the contest. It's going to be one play where Todd Bowles and his defense comes up with that ever elusive turnover that we've been waiting for all year long. And that's going to prove to be the differentiation in this game on Sunday. Matty4_Matera. Check out all of his great stuff over at pewterreport.com. Matt, you are the man. I appreciate you, brother. Enjoy the rest of your week. We'll talk to you again soon.
You're the best, Jay. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.